The San Francisco Symphony is among the top 5 orchestras in the country, and it took decades to reach that status.
The symphony now faces one of its most challenging moments since its inception in 1911. How to keep its prestigious title while struggling financially.
ABC 7 News Building a Better Bay Area reporter Leanne Melendez is here with a look at its future, and these are some challenging times.
And people are very upset right now because of all these challenges. Now, first of all, the conductor who replaced the legendary Michael Tilson Thomas, MTT, is leaving at the end of this season. He is considered among the best conductors in the world. Right now, there is drama, conflict, financial uncertainty, but also a call for optimism. But will it be enough to keep the symphony's reputation intact?
One might say that San Francisco had a fairy tale moment when in late 2018, the symphony hired conductor Esa-Pekka.
To have hired him was, a public relations coup and an artistic coup beyond imagining. None of us here thought that could ever happen.
Salonen didn't actually begin his tenure until 2020, and we all know what that infamous year meant for the world. COVID. All concerts were canceled through June 2021. By then, the two top people directly responsible for hiring Salonen had left. In their place, a new leadership was assembled, Matthew Spivey and Priscilla Gieslin. By March of this year, Salonen announced he was stepping down.
You will perhaps be remembered as the folks who let, quote, a bucket list brilliant conductor go. So a simple question to both of you. What the hell happened?
I think this is a moment of change for every arts organization, certainly in San Francisco, but really across the country. We're seeing as arts organizations emerge coming out of the pandemic, they're thinking differently about who they are and how they connect and relate to the world around them.
Salonen, who has been connected to the world of tech, wanted to experiment with music and robotics.
It's not only about being the orchestra of the future, it's about being the orchestra of the now.
Ideas that some say proved costly. That's when management and the board once again brought up the discussion of financial responsibility, despite having a large endowment.
So you sit around a table as a family and you say, we have this much money, this is what we can spend this year. Do we take a vacation? Do we not take a vacation? Do we go out to dinner more? Do we do less? It's saying that this is the money we have to spend, and this is how we're going to utilize it to make sure that by the end of the year, we still have a reasonable amount of money to move forward.
Critics argue prestige costs money.
If you're not an organization that's ready to spend money to create art, what are you doing?
Are you okay being a great symphony, and great is not the same as amazing or best?
Is one of the most extraordinary ensembles in the world, period. And I think what defines that is not budget size. Some of the most impactful moments that we've made don't necessarily cost much at all.
They both maintain there is no animosity between them and Salonen. Salonen did not want to be interviewed for the story. He did not allow us to film any rehearsals or performances that include him. The video you are watching is in the public domain. With its financial belt-tightening, the symphony is also about to begin contract negotiations with the musicians' union. Scott Pingle is the principal bass of the symphony.
If we lose the high quality of the musicians, we lose the high quality of the art. And so we have to ask ourselves what is important to us. And I think that any civilization has to answer that question, that beauty is incredibly important.
We are committed to working with our musicians, and I trust them. I really do. Our challenge is not an internal one. Our challenge is an external one.
That external challenge is to attract a younger audience and finding new donor money. Bill Luth is the president of Classical KDFC, the radio station that broadcasts the symphony's concerts.
That's part of the challenge, is how do you shore up the rest of the support and the interest, and there's a turnover going on in the folks who support the arts at a high level just because of age.
The symphony believes one way to attract audiences is to showcase what few cities have, a one-of-a-kind performing arts scene, which also includes the ballet, the opera, the SF Jazz Center, and the conservatory.
This is an incredible concentration of great art institutions. And west of the Mississippi, you don't have a concentration like this.
What do you want viewers to get out of this interview?
I want them to come to the hall. I want them to come and support us. I want them to come and enjoy the music and our orchestra and celebrate the San Francisco Symphony.
Oh, and in case you're wondering who will replace Solonin, a selection committee met last Friday to begin searching for another extraordinary conductor, leaving the rest of us to read the tea leaves.
And last night, members of the symphony's chorus voted to authorize a strike, not promising news as the musicians start their negotiations. Now, word on the street is that all these issues may stand in the way of getting a new or that new superstar conductor that they need. Still, they maintain that they are more focused than ever on their education programs in the schools, their community engagement programs, and bringing people to Davies Hall. I think something that people don't realize is that 1/3 of what the symphony gets in revenue, in terms of revenue, comes from people attending these concerts.
So ticket sales are important.
Yes. Very important, but the rest comes from donation. Yeah. So you might argue more important than that.
For sure.
So it's going to be a challenge to get that new generation of money.
Yeah, but it's so important.
Yes.
And it's so much, it enriches our community, and you cannot, very few arts organizations can survive on ticket sales.
Correct. Right.
All right, thanks, Leanne.
Sure.